All right, this is Wayne Dean with 3D Pro Services, and today's session on closing. You know, Deb and Mark and the other people that are watching this, the number one question that I get of all the years that I've been a trainer is, what's the magic close? What's the magic dust? Like everybody wants that magic phrase on how to close people. And I was at the Anatole Hotel in Dallas, Texas, doing a presentation to 3,000 people. And at the break, after I did a session, one of the guys came up to me and said, "Oh my God, Wayne, what's the magic close? What's the thing I could do?" And I go, "If I had it, why would I give it to you for free? I mean, I'd write a book and I'd sell it."
Mhm.
So the idea of closing is there is no magic that's going to get somebody closed. I mean, there's tons of books on closing. It's part of the entire process to get to the point that is this person even qualified to be closed? And again, this you got to think about, does this person have pain that you can fix? Will this person invest the time, the money, and the effort it takes to fix that pain? And can they make the decision to invest the time, then the money to fix the pain? The whole idea of having my system is to get you to this point, to get you to the point that you have a qualified prospect. And this is really hard for some people to grasp this concept. If they don't have pain, or even if they do have pain, and you can fix it, but they won't invest the time or money effort to fix the pain, they don't qualify. And what I mean by that is they don't get your free stuff if they don't have these three things. And that's why, again, my training is three. Everything I do revolves around three. So the three-step process is making sure that this person can do these three things or has these three elements so that you are at a point where you're willing to give them the presentation. Remember, at this point, we're just trying to decide, does this person even qualify for fulfillment? Does this person even get my stuff? And if they don't, this is really hard for people. If they don't get your stuff. And so many people that I've gone through training, they they think, "Oh, I'll overwhelm them with my presentation, and then they'll come up with the money, and then they'll come up with the decision." They go ahead and do premature presentation anyway,
Mhm.
and then their closing ratio is only 20% because they're pitching to people that weren't qualified anyway. So this is really hard to grasp that concept. But anyway, make sure you have these three things before we get to. Remember, we've done bond and rapport. People buy from people like and they trust. Strong upfront contract. Manage the expectations. 3, pain. Does this person have pain that you can fix? 4, will the person spend the money to fix the pain? 5, can they make a decision to spend the money to fix the pain? So we do 5 steps before we do fulfillment. 5 steps before we start pitching. Okay. So when you start thinking about it, let me get to the next slide here. In order to accomplish things, today we're going to teach you about what's called the ultimate contract, the ultimate upfront contract. You've done upfront contract at the beginning, but before you go to close the person, you do what's called the ultimate upfront contract. And then how to conduct what's called the thermometer close. Now, if anybody's, the traditional closing elements are the special offer close, buy one, get three free, whatever like that, that's going to trying to impress people to buy this thing right now. The impending doom close. Oh my God, don't drive off the lot today without fixing those brakes. I don't want you getting a car accident on the way home. You just came in for an oil change and they're telling you. It's the same thing my son took this morning. We drove yesterday to Mexico, Missouri to pick up airplane parts and we did it. And on the way back, his tire kept going low. It had a little pebble. So he took it early this morning to the tire shop. And all I wanted to do was repair the tire. It had a pinhole in it. Oh, you need new tires. Oh my God, I can't. You're probably going to have another flat if you drive any longer without. It's got plenty of tread, but there's a little wear and tear and that kind of stuff. But it's impending doom close, the emotional close. My wife's never been to Hawaii. We got a sales contest going on. You're the last sale I have. Boy, if I can get your sale today. I had the same thing with a guy trying to sell me a system last week, and he's, "Oh, my manager's on my case, and boy, you could really help me close this deal and get my manager off my back." Yeah, you owe
Yeah.
me close. That's the one where it's like, I did a really good job for you last time, or I gave you a referral, whatever it is. They try and get you to close because you did something favor for them before. The alternative close. I love this one. Would you like that delivered on Thursday morning or Thursday afternoon? You've seen these, right? Where the fear of loss close. Oh, if you don't buy now, there's only 3 on the shelf right now. I mean, Amazon sometimes does this where, you look at an item and says there's only 3 left, or the airlines do that and they say only 2 seats left, and you're going to lose if you don't close that deal now. And then 3 days later, you go back, there's still seats available. It's just, these are closing systems that people have gotten used to. And Zig Ziglar, have you heard of Zig Ziglar? Ever hear that name before? Now, I knew Zig. Zig and I lived in Dallas, Texas together in the early 80s. Great guy, fantastic guy, wonderful motivational speaker. But he did a lot of closing techniques in his selling. And I think what's happened this day, many salespeople who follow Zig's teachings find that the consumers have gotten used to them. They've seen these closing methods that we've talked about before, and they know when you're doing it to them. They know, oh, I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to do this. So I think what's happened is the people have been expecting a snake oil salesman when you do the alternative close, or you do the impending doom. And they go, I know what you're trying to do to me. It's like the puppy dog close. The puppy dog close, the whole concept of that one is if you give somebody a puppy to take home for a trial basis, what do you think is going to happen to them? They're gonna fall in love with it and want it. And so, as car dealers do that, take this car home, drive it a little bit, keep it for a day or two, and they hope you fall in love with it. So people try and do that one. And I think people have gotten used to that and they know what it is. And so they're getting used to that one. The backward close, this is where sometimes the salesperson starts with already trying to put you in a situation. Oh, imagine yourself having this product and say, how did you live without this? They start already with you assuming you already got the product. And it's called the backward close. They start with what it's like to have the product or service. They don't talk about price. They don't talk about delivery. They talk about all the things, how great the features and benefits are of this product or service. The hard close, this is where it takes a lot of confidence by a lot of salespeople, but they really push hard for the close. I would say if you've ever gone on a tour for like a timeshare, I mean, I had one where they took us out and in Disney, down in Disney, to show us the timeshare down in Disney. And it was almost like we're out in the middle of the golf course on the golf cart. He's showing us all around. And it's almost like if you don't buy now, you're going to have to walk back. And it was I know he joked about it. He says, that's what we do. We take people all the way to the end and it's 2 miles back to the clubhouse. And, are you committed? Because if not, you're going to have to walk home. And but it was that kind of in fear that he puts in you to kind of do that kind of thing. And it can only be done face to face. The takeaway, let's face it, sometimes the takeaway close works where, they take it away if limited time offer, all those kind of things like, kids love what they can't have. So when you take it away from them and say, when my son was younger and I wanted him to talk to my mom on the phone, yeah, I say, hey, grandma's on the phone. I want you to talk to grandma. He's going, no, I'm busy. I'm playing. But if I'd say, Tyler, don't take this phone from me. I'm talking to grandma. You can't talk to her. And then you want to take it from me kind of thing. And salespeople try these kind of tactics and too. The now or never close, think about all these different types of closes that people give you. I think consumers have gotten used to them. I think when you try some of these techniques that sales books teach you or different sales seminars teach you, there's like these 1 hour sessions where you can go and learn how to close in 1 hour. And that's really what they are, is they're a ploy, they're a gambit, they're a technique. The assumptive close is the closest one that I like. The assumptive close is if you're doing what we do, you've solved their problem at a price they can afford, and they've given you all the right answers to everything. They didn't lie. You don't have to close them. You just assume that they want the product or service. It's kind of like if you think about a doctor. When you go to the doctor and he diagnoses what's wrong with you and offers a product that's going to write you a prescription for this medicine that's going to cure you, he just assumes you're going to go have it filled. He doesn't have to sell you on it. He doesn't have to put a timestamp. He doesn't have to say, now call me when you go get it, right. They do the assumptive close. And the idea of my training is to get you to the point where you really do the assumptive close. You just assume they need the product or service. The summary close, again, is what we're really going to get in today. And that is to summarize all the benefits and features of your product against the pain the person already told you about. Your benefits and features are important. They're important to you, so that you know you're representing a good company and that you're selling a good product or service. What the client cares about is only they care about is, can you solve my problem? They don't care about all your benefits and features. I don't know if the client cares that you've been in business since 1932 or whatever that kind of stuff is. What they care about is, do you have the credibility? Do you have the experience to solve my problem? And maybe sometimes the feature is that, yes, you've been in business long enough to have that credibility. But again, they want to know what you know. And so we summarize it before we close. Hey, Mr. Prospect, I think you got it. This, that. Have I got that right? This is the problem. This is what you're willing to spend to fix the problem. This is how you're going about making a decision. Do I have that right? You summarize it. So I want you to combine the assumptive close with the summary close. And so my 3D method is to summarize the situation. Number one, Mr. Prospect, this is it. Present your solutions only to the problems they present. Do not, in the presentation step, start showing them other benefits and services, because even if they could benefit from them, make the sale today on what's in front of you. Later on, you can come back for an upsell if you see something else, but don't try and add more confusion to the presentation on things that the client didn't tell you about. If you know they have pain and you start introducing new product or service in the closing step, now you've given them informational overload and it's hard for them to make a decision. So summarize the situation. We're going to get into how to do that and then just assume the sale. So my 3D service fulfillment step is this. Again, review and set the ultimate contract. Mr. Prospect, you said you had this pain. This is what you said the budget was. This is how you're going to be making the decision. Do I have that right? And they go, yes. Review the pain. Review everything you talked about. The ultimate contract sounds like this. Well, let's pretend I'm about ready to show you how I can do all this stuff, how I can fix your problem at a price you can afford. Let's pretend that after I get done, it's everything you want. What would happen next? The key to my system is the close is before you present. The close is before, because if you wait to the end, you're putting too much pressure on yourself and the client. So you just say to them, look, this is the problem. You needed more space. You're trying to have a place downstairs for the kids to play. I worked with one builder that he says, I want my kids and their friends here. So I want to build an underground playground kind of thing, a sports court. I want my kids here. So we review. So, that's the biggest pain is you're afraid, your kids aren't around. You don't know where they're at. You don't want them you want them at your location. And he goes, yes. And I said, can I ask you why? Why is it so important for you that the kids be here at your house and the neighbors here? And they said, well, one of my kids, my daughter, she's got a couple of disability issues. You don't recognize it right away, but she's got some issues. She's highly susceptible to peer pressure. I don't want her at somebody else's house and the kids, she's just going to follow the leader. Here, I can control the situation. Can you see that emotional pain? People buy emotionally. They value that logically later. Now, logically, that might not make sense, but emotionally to him, it made sense to have everybody come to their house. And I said, well, let's pretend, this person does this. My builder here is able to do everything you want at a price you can afford. What would happen next? So, well, then I want to talk it over with my mother-in-law. And I, well, help me understand that. We didn't talk about that at the budget step. Does the mother-in-law have anything to do with this? And he goes, well, yeah, because she's going to be here most of the day to take care of the kids. My wife and I work together in the same, we're financial planners and we work together. So when we leave, my mother-in-law is going to be here most of the time. She's going to be watching the kids. So I want to make sure she's comfortable with what we're trying to do, that other kids in the neighborhood would be here. She's just going to watch our two kids. She's going to be watching other kids. That was great information to have, wasn't it, before? See, that's why you do the ultimate upfront contract. The close is before you present. Let's pretend I'm able to solve your problem at a price you could afford. I'm just curious what would happen next. Gives you time to adjust your presentation if you have to. But now you present only to the pains the prospect has. Sell today, educate tomorrow. Now, this is a phrase that in the training business, sales training business, creates a lot of controversy. Because there's other trainers out there that say, oh, you have to educate your client. You've got to make them an educated consumer. You've got to overeducate them and tell them about your product and service and why you're the latest, greatest, most improved. My feeling is if you do that, Sometimes you educate them for your consumer, for your competitor. You give them so much information that they take all that free consulting and use it against you to negotiate a better price with somebody else. Sell them today, educate tomorrow. Okay. Now, you make your presentation. This is the cool thing about this 3D program I teach about this thermometer close. You're presenting your product. You're showing them your designs. You're showing them your product or service. At about 2/3 through your presentation, your fulfillment step, you stop and ask the question, hey, I'm just curious, on a scale of 1 to 10, how am I doing so far? That's really the key on this one. You present, but you stop. You might have delivery dates to talk about. You might have design elements that you still have to incorporate or whatever. But at this point, you've been talking probably about 10, 15, 20 minutes about whatever your product service is, the pain you can fix. Let's stop and take their temperature. On a scale of 1 to 10, how am I doing so far? 5 or less, close up and go home. Nobody buys at 5. 5 is like, if you remember the principles, an object at rest tend to stay at rest unless acted by an equal opposite force. So if you think of a pendulum hanging down at the bottom of a clock, like a Skiska clock, and you want to move it over to the buying zone 3 or 4 o'clock, at 5 o'clock, people don't buy at 5. Somebody says, well, I guess I'm a 4. You know, Mark, I appreciate that. And as great as a 4 is, nobody buys at 4. I'm really missing the point. Should I just close up? Now, what's the key to this is think about it. You told them you got a 1/3 left to show them or 1/4 left to show them, whatever amount. To get that, they've got to bring their number up. They say, well, I guess I'm not, if you just start to close your book and you just say, hey, well, number 5 or less, nobody buys. Sounds like I'm done. I'm really missing the mark. And they oh, no, I want to see the rest. Well, then you're more than a 5? Well, yeah, I guess I'm a 6 or a 7. What do we need to talk about to take you to an 8 or a 9? You don't have to push somebody to a 10. Some people don't buy a 10. Don't think that everybody has to be a 10 on the scale. Some people always have a little bit of reserve. They still buy, but they're a little still uncomfortable. So that's okay. We're not trying to push them to a 10. But if they say I'm a 6 or a 7, what do we need to talk about in the 1/3 that I have left that might take you to an 8 or 9? Okay. That's the idea, is it gives us time to adjust our presentation if we have to. It gives us time so that the person at the end doesn't say, oh, sounds good, I want to think it over, because you missed something that they were thinking about and you didn't talk about it. So this gives them one more time to talk about something that maybe you might have missed in the presentation. Thermometer close is real powerful and you got to practice it, but go ahead and do your presentation and stop. Because as soon as you do the 100% of your presentation, and if you miss something, you're done, right? They've stole all your free consulting and they go, well, you didn't talk about this or you didn't talk about that. And now it sounds like you're backtracking then if you have to go back. Well, okay. So thermometer close, 5 or less, no presentation. Make them get to 6 or 7. 6 or 7, what do we need to see to take you to 8 or 9? Okay. The person says 8 or 9. Can I ask you a question? Does your scale go to 10? And they go, well, what do you mean? Well, some people have never given Nadia Comaneci the first 10 in the Olympics. Some people, nothing's ever perfect. Some people buy at 8 or 9. Right? You agree? So somebody, if the prospects are an 8 or 9, now you can continue your other part of your presentation. If they don't get to an 8 or 9, they don't get the rest. Again, at that point, if somebody is being reserved, oh, I guess I'm a 7, and they don't budge, what they're probably doing, quite frankly, is they already have somebody in mind that they were going to go with, and it's not you. So a really powerful thing is if somebody's at a 7, it's going to sound, hey, Deborah, I appreciate that as much as a 7, but usually when I find people that are only at a 7, it's because they already have a vendor in mind that they want to go with, and it's not me. Is that what's happening here? You already have somebody, you just hope that, my presentation's better than theirs, but it's not so far. So you're probably, and I get it. Sometimes people have already got somebody in mind that they want to work with. And that'll help them kick up to an 8 or 9. And then what happens is if you get the prospect at a 10, even a 9 sometimes, you do the presentation, you're done. here is the magic dust. Here is the magic word. What would you like me to do next? Never say to the prospect, so what do you want to do? Because now you're putting all the pressure on them and they feel too much like you're closing them. When you say to them, so, I've solved your problem at a price you can afford, you like everything, what do you want me to do next? And they go, well, I don't know. Do I need to write you a check? How much down do I need to put? And you reverse them again. Yeah, we need a down payment. Why? What were you thinking? Because again, they might be willing to give you more than what you were thinking. So if somebody agrees and says, yes, let's move forward, what do we need to do next? Well, and they say, well, do I need to give you a down payment? What is your typical answer? How much does somebody have to give you to start the process?
30%.
30, well, yeah, 30% on
Mhm.
a big job,
Big
but
jobs.
usually there's a retainer of, something, so.
Good. Well, maybe they might come back and say, well, I don't know, was it 50%? What if they see? That's why you put it in their lap. And now if they come back and say, well, yeah, do I have to give you down payment? Yeah. Why? What were you thinking? And they go 10%. And you go, well, on a job this size, would it surprise you? I said, typically we need 30. Would that make sense? So you can still get them to your number.
Yeah.
So a lot of people say, well, if I say, what do you want to do next? And they say, well, why didn't they give you 10%? And I was going to start 30. I have to stay with the 10. No, you don't. You get to come back and say, I very nurturingly, I appreciate that. It is not good as a number as 10% is. Do you understand why I might have to go to 30 with a job this large? Because I've got to order a lot of materials. I've got to schedule everything. So we're going to need 30%. Would that be fair? Does that make sense? Again, try and end it with those kind of things. Would that be fair? Does that make sense? Because that's what they're answering. Not that they're willing to give you 30%, but that it's fair.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? Would that be fair? Okay. So again, 3 things you got to think about in the close: review and set the ultimate contract, present only to the pains they have, and do the thermometer close. I think that sometimes people have a hard time remembering a lot of different steps. So I try and do everything in 3. The power of 3. Everything we do, 3 strikes you're out, 3 innings. Everything we're trying to think around is a 3. So when we do that, makes sense, is to try and stay in a systematic approach to your close. Most salespeople, I say, so what's your closing technique? They can't tell me. They just wing it. They don't have a systematic approach like this. So again, when he is qualified now, what? Well, what is your closing objective? You can look at this fulfillment step in 2 ways. It's either your reward for doing a well job of prospecting and getting this guy qualified, or it's an agonizing price you pay for doing a poor job this whole time. And now you have that uncomfortable closing where you have to close somebody. I always get a kick out of the word close, to tell you the truth. Closing, like, oh, close me, like my casket is closed. It's done. It's over. It's just starting. The process is just starting when you actually get somebody to sign a contract, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, but now you also want to do, after the prospect's qualified and they say, yes, this sounds good. What I need to do, give you 10%, need to sign a contract. And he said, yes, that makes sense. But remember, there could be some obstacles that get in the way of this actually going through. So you have to think about, one of the roadblocks is either the existing vendor or the salesperson that they're working with from the other competitor. So when I get somebody to say, yes, let's move forward, and I reach my hand out and we say, shake hands, because that's almost with most people, that's the bond. I appreciate you signing up, great. We'll put the contract together, whatever it is, but the contract is a handshake. But at that point, it's going to sound like this. Hey, Mark, appreciate you guys, and Deb, appreciate you guys committing to work with me. I don't envy you guys now, though. Oh, what do you mean? Well, I'm sure I'm not the only person you've talked to. Now you're going to have to call those other 8 companies that you got a bid from or that you've been working with and telling them you're going with us. That's probably going to be an uncomfortable call, isn't it? Well, yeah, they're probably going to call me, and I go, and when you tell them you're going to go with us, what do you think they're going to say? Oh, I didn't know you're going to go with them. Is there anything we can do? Can we lower their price by 10%? Well, you can't deal with those objections after the fact. You need to bring them up now. So we say, when that guy from the other company calls you up that you met at the home show, and they say, well, I didn't know, give us another chance. What are you going to tell them? I mean, let's say they want to lower the price by 10%. Are you going to tell them, hey, you had your chance, you should have done it before? Right? I want to handle any objections or roadblocks while I'm with that person now. So that when I get back to the office, there's not an email, which most people would rather do an email or text. Hey, Wayne, don't cash that check. Something's come up, because they talked to the competitor and got a better deal. Let's deal with it now. So deal with that after the fact, after you get the handshake. All right. Remember, people resist change. So if they've been working with another vendor in the past, that we used another contractor 10 years ago for something, they still, even though they like working with you and they're pretty happy with you, they still think in their mind, oh my God, why should I change? I had sort of a good relationship with this other vendor. Maybe I'll go back to them. So you want to deal with that roadblock, you know? And if you've made it this far, remember, we're getting to the fulfillment step. We've done everything already. We bonded with person. We understand enough for a contract. We covered pain, decision, money. If you've gotten this far, why do you think the sale's already closed? Any answer to that question for you guys? Why do you think that if you've made it this far to the fulfillment step, you're ready to present?
I mean, I think we've shown that, that we're, I mean, I don't know if this makes sense, but I would say like, we're the correct choice for them, that we're the ones that get their understanding, that they have a complete trust in us, and that they know we're there to solve their problems, I
Yeah.
guess.
Absolutely, because the prospects should be ready to be closed, because during the pain step, the prospects saw your expertise, just what you were saying. They
Mhm.
just saw your expertise and the fit between their pains and your product service. During the budget step, you discovered the prospect's budget and know that your product or service will fit that budget. And I'll stop here and go to, if you don't do a good job in the budget step, the problem comes to be that most people think they've got to do the fulfillment, and then the prospect will go back and find the money. Or the prospect says to you, hey, Mark, I really appreciate this, but I don't know what I need you to tell me what my budget is.
Mhm.
Really? Really? Uh, if you don't cover the budget step up front, is the client willing and able to spend the money? When you get to your presentation, now they've got the leverage and try and get you to go lower. They say, oh, this sounds really great. And yeah, your $30,000 bill is great. Can you do any better? Because they controlled the process. You need to get that they're willing to spend 30,000. Or the worst case scenarios, they give you a budget and they give you pains, and to fix their pains, it's going to cost 40. Here's how I do that. Hey, Mark, Deborah, I'm about ready to show you how I can fix your pain problems. And, we don't use the word pain, but we just, well, I can give you everything you want, except I got a problem. And silence is golden. They're going to say, what do you mean? Well, the problem is, I understand your budget, but the things that you asked me to do, I'm going to have a real hard time doing them at that price. So we're going to have a choice here. Either we're going to have to cut a few things, or we're going to have to increase the budget. Which way you want to go? Well, I don't want to cut anything. That's usually what they're going to say, right? So I'm about ready to show it, but I can show you what we can do, but it's going to be, I'm going to show you at about $40,000 level. Well, we want to see it. Well, why? Why would you want to see something at 40 if you wouldn't really spend the money? They have to commit that they'd spend the money before they get to see it. Too many people, amateur people in the building industry and other industries too, but mostly in the building industry, they're willing to pitch it and show everybody what they get for 40,000.
Yeah.
But then get a commitment where the client would spend it. Because now what the client has got is all your ideas and everything. They got your fulfillment, and now they can go shop you. We got to get them to commit. And that's how you do it, is say, I can solve your problems at a price you can not afford, though. You told me your budget was 30,000, but you told me you wanted this, this, and this. I can't do it for 40. Well, I want to see it anyway. Why? Why would you want to see it if you wouldn't spend the money? Why would you go test drive a Lamborghini when you know you can't afford it? Right? That's the kind of thing you're thinking about with the person. Of course, they want to see it. Of course, they're going to say, "Oh, I want to see it," and you have to have the guts, discipline, and vitality. The guts, discipline, another three, guts, discipline, and vitality to be able to say that I'd love to show it to you, But unless you're willing to spend the money, it'd really be a waste of both of our times to show it to you. That's how you take somebody from that low, because remember, the number that they gave you is 30% less than what they'll really spend. It's the same thing, right? So
Mhm.
when you get to the presentation step and your fulfillment's going to cost more than they said they'd spend, you do that. Why would you want to see it if you wouldn't spend it? They don't get to see your stuff. They don't get your free consulting, even if they give you a design concept. They don't get all the rest of it, the estimating and all everything else, unless they commit that they'd spend the money to do it. And I understand that's really difficult. Most people are willing to present. I already did the work anyway. Why wouldn't I go ahead and present it? Because it doesn't. The reason you're hiring me is because you want to go from whatever you're at closing ratio now to a higher closing ratio, and to do it, you got to do some difficult things, some things that you weren't used to doing. And one of them is that they don't get your stuff unless they've committed to spend the money to do it. Okay. And then during the decision step, you discovered who the decision makers are and what they want to do and what they need to hear from you in order to make a decision. So that's why if you get to the fulfillment step, it really should be about an 80% close. And people, 80%, my God, that's so high. Well, if you've done everything right, you should go from your 50, 60% closing ratio, or even if it's lower, to 80%. The only time you don't sell somebody is because they lied to you. And 20% of the people do. 20% of the people were always going to work with their brother-in-law and just wanted to get more details. They were always going to go to him, whatever it is. So you've established an agreement about what will take place during the presentation and that a decision or yes or no will follow. Remember, we did the upfront contract. When we get done, it's either yes, this makes sense, or no, it doesn't make sense. Please don't do the TIO. I'd like to think it over. You've got to have the guts, discipline, and vitality again to when we get done, it's either a yes, this makes sense, or no, it doesn't. At the end, please don't do the polite, hey, this sounds good, I'm going to think it over. And even if it is, remember the three things we want out of a presentation: a yes, a no, or a clearly defined next step. If the person is an S-style person that says, I just got to think this over, that makes sense, I appreciate that. How long are you going to need? Well, I'm just the kind of person that just needs to sleep on it. Then there's some people like that. They just have to sleep, but they can't pull the trigger on a $40,000 contract overnight. Why don't we do this? Why don't you take the time to think it over? I'll call you tomorrow at 9:00. And tomorrow at 9:00, when I call you, we'll either decide to go move forward or not. Would that be fair? Most people, yeah, that's fair. Any reason when I call you at 9:00 tomorrow, you want to answer the phone? Remember, we do another contract. Any reason? Oh yeah, I forgot. I got a conference call at 9 because maybe they were thinking I'll just do I stole this stuff. I'll get my free consulting and then I hope that you go away. There's so many people that once you get their stuff, they don't want to tell you no. And the reason they don't want to tell you no is they're in their system again. Remember, their system is they want to get free consulting later on. So they'll say, this sounds good, Mark. I really want to think this over. And then they hope that you can't get a hold of them. They go to, voicemail hell, or they don't return the text. They just hope you go away. But they don't want to tell you no, because they want to be able to call you back 2 weeks later and say, hey, we were thinking, what if we added this? Or we didn't see, the idea is they probably went and shopped and then didn't find anybody else. And the longer it goes between that time that they talk to somebody else and didn't get the answer and they don't talk to you, now they feel uncomfortable about calling you. It's been 3 months. I shopped. I didn't find anybody better. I'd like to go back to Mark, but geez, I've been putting off. I haven't returned his phone calls. So don't let them fall into that by saying to them, hey, let's do this. I've had people say, we don't have this quarter. Call me next quarter. And I go, so for you, what's next quarter? January, February, March, April, May, June, July. So the next quarter starts when? October 1? Oh yeah, last quarter, October 1. October. So great. October 1st, I'll put in my calendar, call you at 10:00. Any reason why I call you at 10:00 on October 1st, you wouldn't be there, you wouldn't pick up the phone? Get a commitment, have the guts to do it. Now, again, 3 primary causes for losing the sale. You were given inaccurate information regarding the prospect needs, wants, and the problem. Circumstances have changed that you're not aware of in between the time that you beat the presentation and you made a strong upfront contract as to when to talk to them again. And the prospect's been less than honest with you. Those are only 3 reasons you shouldn't get a sale. And even the second one, circumstances have changed that you're not aware of. That's why I do an upfront contract. When I call somebody back after about even a week or 2 weeks and they wanted to think it over, and we had a strong commitment as to what the clear next step was, I'd call them and say, hey, Mark, it's been, you told me to call you in a week. Has anything changed since we last talked? It helps them see the exit ramp because maybe they were afraid that the bank loan didn't come through because their credit was only 620. Do you think they want to tell you that? So you want to say to them when you start out that next call, hey, you told me, it's been a week. You told me to call you in a week. Have circumstances changed at all since we talked last time? And it could be, oh yeah, I won the lottery and I want to upgrade it. That's the good way to start that call when it's been a while. So do you have anybody who you're chasing that you made a presentation to and they're avoiding you? They haven't returned your calls. Is there anybody that fits that? Okay.
We have a couple.
So with that person, this is the email you send. Hey, Mark, usually when we get to this point of the relationship, 1 or 2 things is happening. That's the first sentence. Hey, Mark, when we usually get to this part in the relationship, you don't have to explain, hey, you're dodging me. They know what's going on. Usually when we get to this point in the relationship, 1 of 3 things is going on. 1, you've decided to go somewhere else and you're just having a difficult time telling me. Right? Isn't that what's going on? They decide to go so, and they hope you just give up. But you come back and say, hey, remember when we first talked? We agreed that'd be okay to tell me no. I can handle a no. Okay. If it's a no, just let me know. So I don't want to be a pest. So just let me know it's a no so I can move on. 2, circumstances have changed that I'm not aware of. Right? That could be happening. Something's happened that, they've been, mother-in-law died, whatever it is. Their circumstances have changed that this just isn't a priority anymore. It's not a no, but it's just not a priority anymore. And that's in my letter. In my email, I'll say that, circumstances changed. For some reason, this isn't a priority anymore. 3, I didn't show you how I can fix your problem at a price you could afford. Thus, you're still shopping. It's one of those 3 reasons why somebody's not calling you back. So now here's the exit ramp. Then you say, could you do me and the key word here is personal. Could you do me a personal favor? Could you let me know which one of those it is, or if it's something else? And if I don't hear from you within 72 hours, I'll close your file. Now that gives them plenty of time. You've been very nurturing. You've given them the time frame. If I don't hear from you in 72 hours, I'll close your file. The funny thing is they don't know what that means, close the file, but it doesn't sound good. What if your doctor called you up right now and said, hey, I haven't seen you for a while. You haven't come in for your annual checkup. If I don't hear from you in a while, I'm going to close your file. Wouldn't you clear? Hey, don't close my file. Now, that doesn't mean you can't 3 months from now open the file again. See, it doesn't mean anything because you can call somebody up, Deborah, hey, we're just going through our system again. We see that 3 months ago we had a conversation. A year ago we had a conversation. Any of you got those people that you had a conversation with and you haven't got full closure at? You get to go back and say, hey, we were just going through our files and we want to reopen your file. What did you buy? Who did you go with? And were you happy with the results? Because isn't that what's going on? Who did you go with and are you happy with the results? You might get people say, oh, God, he never showed up. I went with them. They didn't do anything. Or, no, I'm not happy with the results. Or, yeah, we did go with somebody. We're happy with the results. And now you get to close the file. You don't have to think about them again. But you'd be shocked how many people, when I do those bring on prospecting, 10% of most people make sales on presentations they already made to somebody that they thought were dead. And they go back to those people and say, and the keyword is just, hey, I'm just curious, what did you buy? And are you still happy with it? Yeah. And a lot of people go, God, no, I'm not happy with it. Didn't happen. And then they say, or even in your world where the person says, No, I went with so-and-so and no, they were really slow. And we were thinking about another project now, but we're not going to go with them again. And it opens up another door for you if you have. So a lot of times when salespeople are struggling for sales, I'll say, go back to all your old files. I don't care how far you go back, and have somebody, a telemarketer, anybody, yourself, just call and just, hey, we're just curious. What did you buy? And are you happy with it? Again, it's a pain question is really what it is. It's a pain question. You get so many people go, oh, God, we weren't happy with it. Or they might sit there and say, no, we weren't happy with it, but we're going to have to live with it. I understand. But if your friend or neighbor came to you and said, hey, we're looking for a remodeling job, would you recommend that vendor? And they go, oh, God, no. Would you recommend us? Oh, yeah, I guess so. So it opens up a whole lot of prospecting for you when you do that. All right. So avoid some mistakes and we'll be done here. You don't clearly review the ultimate upfront contract. You don't get into this habit of doing the let's pretend. Hey, I'm just about ready to show I can solve your problem at a price you can afford. I'm just curious what would happen next. If I get you to add that to your presentation, you'd be shocked how many more sales you make because of it. Present before you close. Or they rush through the pain step. Oh, I've heard it all before. Everybody's the same. When we start assuming that every client's the same, we miss a lot in the pain step. You didn't deal with money specifically up front. You just thought your benefits and features were going to overwhelm them. They'll go find the money. And you didn't people will only be motivated to action by the intensity of their pain. So talk about the pain. Or the decision process wasn't clearly defined and agreed to how the process is going to be. And you didn't bring the real decision makers into the fold. Even if you do, the nice thing is about my thermometer close idea, if you do 2/3 of your presentation and you hold something back, and then earlier in the decision process, you found there was somebody else, you get to say, hey, I've got about 1/3 left to show you. Why don't we do this? Why don't we schedule another meeting for you and the other decision maker to be available, and I'll show you the other 1/3. See, that's how you can get that other person involved in the decision making by stopping. Go ahead and present 2/3, but don't give them the other 1/3 until the decision maker's involved. Remember, you don't have to do the full presentation. You get to decide when to present everything. And the thermometer close really helps in that as far as a technique, if you will. Now, I did have somebody, and I'll address this if you got a minute left. I did have somebody came up to me, hey, Wayne, I heard about your training. I've seen it, watch your videos. Don't you think your system's kind of manipulative? You sit there and sales is about, don't you think you're manipulating people? And I go, well, I have a dog and my golden retrievers are worth about $30,000 because their puppies go for $3,000 a piece because they're well trained. They're in the line. So the dog's worth $30,000 as far as even cost of how much that, if that dog's running across the street and I yell, Journey, stop, treat, you all treat to her and she comes back. Now, if I did that and I stopped her from getting hit by a car, was that manipulative? Yeah, but for good, not evil.
Yeah.
So as long as you're selling for your prospects' reasons instead of yours, I don't think any of these techniques are manipulative. I think they're just a process to go through. There's a start and finish to everything. And if you look at a sales process that way, there's a start and finish to everything. And all we're trying to do is get to the end, either yes, no, or a clearly defined next step. All my techniques I give you aren't really manipulative. They're just part of the process to get to an end result. All right, that's my day. Anything on this that, again, we'll get to typically the last. We've done all this stuff.
Good information.
Yeah. The last thing is, what are you going to start doing? What are 3 of the most important things you learn? What are you going to start doing? And what are you going to stop doing? Because you got through my closing program today. Anything? What are you going to start doing? What are you going to stop doing?
I mean, start doing, I think, we have a kind of a joke around here that we say with meetings, no agenda, no attenda. And I think the part to that would be no upfront contract, no meeting. It's the same thing, right? It's just
okay. Yeah, that's right there. Okay.
Yeah.
If my system just reinforces what you're already doing, that's good too.
Well, it's kind of what we've been starting doing, but I think it goes to that, like, once again, which is, with that, just sticking with that, upfront contract in those 5 questions, it's like, or 5 points, I think that's probably the single biggest thing that will make a big difference in my life right now, so. I don't know, I can't think of 3 necessarily right off the top.
You don't have to.
I think the other part too, though, is just, it's so simple, but like, it does take a lot of guts to ask the questions that need to be asked. And, we need to do it in a way that, like you say, is, if you feel it, say it, but do it caringly. And I think that's,
nurturingly correct. Very good. You're getting it, man. You're saying all the things you're almost getting to the point where you can teach this. You're saying the right things. Here's what I hope you get out of today. One, that you'll start doing a ultimate upfront contract. Before you present, I hope you'll start saying, hey, I'm about ready to show you all the things you wanted to see. And it sounds just natural. Hey, off the record, I'm just curious. Let's pretend you love it. It's everything you want. What would happen next? Well, everything you showed me is great. We're going to buy. See, that's the close.
Yeah.
Okay. So I hope that's number 1. Number 2, I hope you'll really learn to do the thermometer close.
Yeah, I like that. That was, I've never thought of or heard of that or anything. So
the thermometer close is powerful. Forget all the puppy dog close, the impending doom, and all those other ones.
Yeah.
Your close should be the thermometer close.
Yeah.
I'm just curious how I'm doing so far. And you'll get people that I will warn you on that one. The person says, oh, I'm a 10. This sounds great. The happiest people are the ones with no money. Right? The ones that, this sounds fantastic. I love it. Everything's great. And they're thinking about, but I can't afford it.
Yeah.
So be careful. The nice thing is that's why you do a negative reverse. When somebody says, oh, I'm a 10, this is fantastic. And your gut is telling you,
yeah,
it sounds like this. I appreciate that, Mark. And as good as a 10 is, I don't know why I feel this way, but I'm just feeling that if I had the contract right now, you'd hesitate to sign it. Why am I feeling that way? Never say to them, why are you feeling? Always put it on you.
Yeah.
I just had a feeling that if I had the contract all drafted and I put it in front of you, you hesitate to sign it. Well, even though you're telling me a 10, I don't know why I feel that way, but why do I feel that way? And let's say, well, I don't know why you feel that way. I'm ready to go. Okay, great. Move on. But somebody would say, well, because, see, remember, a lot of people want to give you happy years. They want to say all the wonderful things so you give up all your free consulting and they still get to come back and do a TIO.
Yeah.
So be careful with that. So do an upfront contract. All right. Ultimate upfront contract. Do the thermometer close. And then 3, I hope you actually will start saying, I don't envy you now, because now you're going to have to call those other vendors you've dealt with and tell them you're going with me.
Yeah.
Because you'll even get people, oh, this sounds great. We're 100%. But I really got to run. Can you send me the contract? We'll sign it later. Even you get those people that kind of like give you all that stuff, and then later on you can't get a hold. It's because they went back to another vendor, and I didn't know you're going to go with them guys. And you didn't get a commitment from them. That's why you always review, appreciate that. But because really in your world, and I think probably in Utah, same thing, any contract, they still have 3 days right of refusal, right? Rescinding, they still get 3 days. So I even say that people, hey, even if you signed today, you still got 3 days, right? And they go, well, yeah, I remember hearing about that. Anything you could, the next 3 days, you're probably going to call those other vendors you got bid from.
Yeah.
Tell them you're going to go with me. Any reason why you'd go with somebody else if they offer a lower price? That takes guts, doesn't it? But that way you won't. The idea, there's a phrase that Dave Sandler had in his book. Don't buy back tomorrow what you sold today. So you think you sold them today, but tomorrow you got to walk it back because you didn't do a good job of handling objections and roadblocks that could come up after the fact. So, all right.